Now let's move a little bit further east. In the Hindu tradition, in the Indian subcontinent, the snake is not seen merely as treacherous and evil, but instead it's understood to be wise and cunning. Similar to the allegory of the snake speaking to Eve, the teacher seen here, this is Sadhguruji, a devotee of Lord Shiva. He explains that by carefully observing what the snake has to teach us, it may impart its unspoken wisdom to us. There's this notion of, when the ancients would say something spoke, like in the Quran, Jesus essentially as an infant was speaking. Okay. This isn't a literal meaning of he was speaking the language and teaching, but he was speaking means, in that sense, the way it's interpreted, it's the observer is closely observing this child here, and they're recognizing there's something special happening. This child is embodying something special, is communicating something special. It doesn't have to be words, and it wasn't. It likely wasn't words. It's just that our modern interpretation is we're trying to put the lens of our modern interpretation over top of the ancient worldview. They're incompatible, so therefore any modern interpretation is invalid. So back to the snakes. So the snakes, let's talk about what the snake has to teach us. The snake's body rests entirely on the ground. And so the snake, in a very real sense, is one giant sensory organ. You could say it's one giant ear. The snake can sense danger long before most other creatures, and it wisely escapes to safety. Some snakes possess the ability to see in just about total darkness, having developed infrared vision. Even more importantly, the snake can live up to 2 years without food, which indicates that this animal wisely manages its energies to a very fine degree. Such a notion rests at the very foundation of yogic philosophy and practice, and specifically the practice of Kundalini Yoga, which uses the body of the snake to describe the movement of energy through the energy centers of the human body. So it's the snake that has a lot to teach us, or the snake has a lot to tell us if we listen. The snake, of course, is also widely used as a symbol for the cycle of birth and death and renewal, of course, and this is the Ouroboros seen here, very well-known symbol. In their lifetime, snakes will molt or shed their own skin many times, lending just one more association with snakes and the cosmic cycle of nature. In Judaism and Hinduism alike, the snake is understood to be both a symbol of one of the most primary forms of existence, along with one of the most fundamental physical expressions of universal or primordial energy. There's that feminine creative force coming in again. The symbolism of the serpent is forever linked with the fundamental forces of creation. And the same can be said of the feminine energy, of course. Just like the seemingly opposite nature of light and dark, or masculine and feminine, just as the serpent and the eagle, etc., it seems that the paradoxical nature of our reality is rather inescapable. Now, I think of the serpent and the eagle as being seemingly opposite, just like dark and light, because Think about the nature of the eagle, and it is, of course, as far from the earth as it can be, and the snake, of course, is as close to the earth as it can be. Everywhere we look in our world, exists certain mysterious contradictions which never seem to be put to rest. Such a notion represents a well-understood dynamic in Hermeticism known as the divine paradox. This is why esoteric traditions seek unity and reconciliation between the eagle and the serpent, instead of believing them to be separate and having to be at odds with each other. And one of the most recognizable Western iterations of this reconciliation of the eagle and the serpent, or of masculine and feminine, is, of course, the Greek god Hermes, the messenger of the gods. In alchemical theory, Hermes, or Mercury if you like, represents the spirit being the middle ground between the soul and the body. The spirit in man is recognized generally as sense experience married to the intellect. In other words, our spirit is the direct link between the higher and lower, the metaphysical and the physical, masculine and feminine, as the metaphorical eagle and the serpent. I mean, look at the caduceus that Hermes is holding. At the top, you have the wings of the eagle, and below, you have the primordial energy of the serpent. So you have the metaphysical at the top, physical at the bottom, and of course, who reconciles that? Who is the messenger of the gods between the metaphysical and the physical? It's, of course, Hermes. So that reconciliation is where the magic happens. And so let's get back to the flag of Mexico. This theme of the eagle and the serpent is pervasive across the world's cultures, but also the reconciliation of both the eagle and the serpent, or the metaphysical and physical aspects to our existence, are reconciled through the occulted traditions of antiquity, and they're hiding in plain sight upon the symbolism of Mesoamerica, as well as upon this flag of Mexico, which emerged, of course, from the land of the Aztecs. After all, it is the patron deity of the Aztec priesthood, like the Greek Hermes, that is showing something profoundly important. Now, this, of course, patron deity is Quetzalcoatl, which we'll talk a little bit about. A clue about the nature of the world is embedded in this image, which we have really hopelessly drifted away from, I feel like, which is why I'm doing this presentation in the first place, which is to say the eagle and the serpent represent the integral relationship between the heavens and the earth. And of course, the story and symbolism associated with the flag of Mexico alludes to the Aztec deity known as Quetzalcoatl. Quetzalcoatl is the feathered serpent, representing the union between the eagle and the serpent, or the soul and the body, which is to say that Quetzalcoatl is an enduring symbol of both life and death, and the union of order and chaos. Or more specifically, the embodiment of the relationship between creation and destruction in our world. In other words, the universal force of existence which simultaneously transcends and encompasses both good and evil. As I have mentioned many times before in previous videos, a large proportion of our worldview as modern humans, or so-called modern humans, has been handed down to us by our ancient ancestors. Ancestors whom derived everything they know about the world through the close observation and veneration of nature. The sages of antiquity made no attributions of good or evil to nature herself. Instead, they sought to better understand and reconcile the seemingly opposing forces of creation and destruction through their mythologies, traditions, and stories. And similar to the state of our civilization today, they were also far from perfect.